Take a look at the medications in your bathroom cabinet right now. Aspirin, painkillers, heart medications. What if I told you that many of them were not invented in a laboratory? They were extracted from plants, from leaves, bark, roots, and flowers that ancient healers had been using for centuries before any modern chemist understood what made them work. According to the World Health Organization, roughly 25% of all modern prescription drugs contain compounds derived from plants. That is not history. That is your medicine cabinet right now. The most prescribed diabetes drug in the world came from a herb European farmers fed to their goats. A drug that took childhood leukemia, survival from 10% to 90%, came from a flower in Madagascar. And one ancient Chinese remedy won the Nobel Prize in 2015 for saving hundreds of thousands of lives every year. This is educational content, not medical advice. Several of the plants in this video are dangerous in their raw form. Foxglove, opium poppy, belladonna. These plants killed people long before they saved them. The pharmaceutical versions contain precise, regulated dosages that can never be safely replicated at home. If a medication discussed in this video is relevant to your health, please work with a qualified medical professional. Today we are covering 10 modern medicines that started as ancient plants. Stay until the end, because the final medicine on our list is the only herbal medicine ever to win a Nobel Prize. If you're fascinated by the hidden science behind ancient remedies and the plants that changed history, subscribe to the Green Domain. Every week, we explore where ancient wisdom meets modern science. Let us begin with the everyday giants, the common drugs hiding in plain sight. First, aspirin from willow bark. We have mentioned this story before in our pain plants and convergent evidence videos, but this is where it belongs. Willow bark, Salix alba, was used by every major civilization on Earth. The Egyptians documented it in the Ebers Papyrus around 1550 BC. Hippocrates prescribed it. Native American tribes chewed it. The active compound, salicine, was isolated in 1828 by the French pharmacist Henri Leroux. In 1897, a chemist at Bayer named Felix Hoffmann modified the compound to reduce its harshness on the stomach. He created acetylsalicylic acid. Today, we call it aspirin. It is on the World Health Organization list of essential medicines. It is one of the most widely used drugs in human history, and it began as a tree bark that ancient healers chewed for headaches and fever. But aspirin is not the only household name with ancient roots. Take metformin from goat's rue. This is one of the most surprising stories in pharmaceutical history. Galega officinalis, known as goat's rue or French lilac, was used in European folk medicine since the medieval period for excessive thirst and frequent urination. We now recognize those symptoms as diabetes. In 1918, scientists isolated a compound called guanidine from goat's rue. Guanidine lowered blood sugar, but was too toxic for medical use. Researchers spent years modifying the molecule to retain its blood sugar lowering effect while reducing toxicity. In 1922, two researchers named Werner and Bell synthesized metformin. It was approved for diabetes treatment in France in 1957, in the United Kingdom in 1958, and in the United States in 1995. Today, metformin is the most prescribed diabetes medication on Earth. It is taken by over 100 million people every single day. It is on the World Health Organization list of essential medicines, and researchers are now studying it for potential benefits in longevity and cancer prevention. A herb that medieval Europeans fed to their goats became the foundation of modern diabetes treatment. Next, we are about to cover a drug that may have saved more lives in history than almost any other on this list. Quinine from cinchona bark. The Quechua people of Peru had been using the bark of the cinchona tree for centuries to treat chills and fevers. In the 1630s, Spanish Jesuit priests in South America observed this use and brought the bark to Europe. Within decades, cinchona bark became one of the most valuable medicinal substances in the world because it cured malaria. In 1820, two French researchers, Pierre-Joseph Pelletier and Joseph Bayenim Caventou, isolated the active compound. They called it quinine. For nearly 300 years, quinine was the primary treatment for malaria. It saved millions of lives across Africa, Asia, and the Americas. It also has a curious side effect. The bitter taste of quinine became the foundation of tonic water, which is why gin and tonic was invented as a medicinal beverage by British colonists in India. Not all medicines started as gentle remedies. Some began as beautiful assassins, lethal poisons that became lifesavers once we understood how to dose them. Take digoxin from foxglove. This story is one of the most dramatic in the history of medicine. In the 1770s, an English physician named William Withering was caring for a patient with severe edema. This was a condition called dropsy, where fluid built up dangerously in the body because the heart could not pump effectively. Most patients with dropsy died, but Withering's patient survived. When he asked why, he learned that the patient had been treated by a folk healer in Shropshire using a secret herbal mixture. Withering tracked down the healer and persuaded her to share the formula. He spent the next 10 years testing every ingredient. The active plant was Digitalis purpurea, foxglove. In 1785, Withering published an account of the foxglove, documenting his findings across 163 patients. It was one of the first detailed clinical drug studies in history. Today, 2 compounds extracted from foxglove, digoxin and digitoxin, are still prescribed for heart failure and atrial fibrillation. Digoxin is on the World Health Organization list of essential medicines. A flower that grows wild in English country gardens became one of the most important heart medications ever developed, and it started with a folk healer whose name history almost forgot. Equally dangerous is atropine from belladonna. Atropa belladonna, deadly nightshade, gets the second half of its scientific name from a particular Italian custom. In Renaissance Italy, women used drops of belladonna juice to dilate their pupils, which was considered a sign of beauty. Belladonna means beautiful lady. In 1831, the German chemist Friedlieb Ferdinand Runge isolated the active compound. He called it atropine, after Atropos, one of the 3 fates of Greek mythology, the one who cut the thread of life. The name was a warning. In high doses, belladonna kills, but in carefully controlled doses, atropine is one of the most important drugs in emergency medicine. It is used to dilate pupils during eye exams. It treats dangerously slow heart rates. It is used as an antidote for certain nerve agent poisonings. It is on the WHO list of essential medicines. A plant Italian women used as cosmetics became standard equipment in every emergency room in the world. And then, there is the joy plant, morphine from opium poppy. Papaver somniferum has been cultivated for medicinal purposes for over 5,000 years. The Sumerians called it the joy plant. Egyptians, Greeks, and Romans used it extensively for pain, sleep, and sedation. In 1804, a young German pharmacist named Friedrich Sertner isolated the active compound from opium poppy resin. He named it morphine, after Morpheus, the Greek god of dreams. This was the first time in history that an alkaloid had been isolated from a plant. It launched the entire field of modern pharmacology. Morphine remains the gold standard for severe pain management. Codeine, also from opium poppy, was isolated in 1832. Both are on the World Health Organization list of essential medicines. These compounds are tightly controlled because they are also addictive when misused. But for severe pain, they remain among the most important medicines ever discovered. Beyond pain and heart failure, the natural world also holds the blueprint for some of our most impossible cures, specifically for cancer and Alzheimer's disease. Consider vincristine from the Madagascar periwinkle. We touched on this plant in our African video, but it deserves a deeper telling here. Catharanthus roseus, the Madagascar periwinkle, was used in traditional Malagasy medicine for diabetes, malaria, and various infections. In 1958, 2 researchers at the University of Western Ontario, Robert Noble and Charles Beer, isolated a compound from the plant that they hoped would treat diabetes. It did not. But they noticed something else. The compound dramatically reduced the white blood cell count in test animals. That observation led to the development of vincristine and vinblastine, 2 chemotherapy drugs that would change cancer treatment forever. Before vincristine, the survival rate for childhood acute lymphoblastic leukemia was approximately 10%. After vincristine entered standard treatment, that survival rate climbed to over 90%. Let those numbers sink in for a moment. A plant from Madagascar, used in traditional medicine for centuries, transformed childhood cancer from a death sentence into a survivable disease. Both compounds are on the WHO list of essential medicines. Similarly, we have paclitaxel from the Pacific U. In 1962, scientists Monroe Wall and Mansukh Wani at the Research Triangle Institute screened thousands of plant compounds for anti-cancer activity. One sample, taken from the bark of the Pacific yew tree, showed remarkable effects. It took until 1992 for the compound, now called paclitaxel or Taxol, to receive approval from the Food and Drug Administration. It is used to treat breast, ovarian, lung, and other cancers. It is on the World Health Organization list of essential medicines. A slow-growing tree in the rainforests of the Pacific Northwest turned out to contain a molecule that has saved millions of lives. The Pacific yew was once considered a weed. It is now considered one of the most important discoveries in the history of cancer treatment. While some researchers looked to the rainforest, others found answers in a strange origin story from modern pharmacy. Galanthamine from the snowdrop. In rural Bulgaria during the polio epidemic of the 1950s, local people noticed that peasants who worked among snowdrop flowers seemed to have less paralysis from polio infection. Galanthus species, the common snowdrop, had been used in Bulgarian folk medicine for centuries. Researchers at the University of Sofia began studying the plant and isolated a compound they called galanthamine. It was initially developed for polio. Decades later, scientists discovered that galantamine had a different use entirely. It inhibits acetylcholinesterase, the enzyme that breaks down acetylcholine. This is the same mechanism that sage and the prescription Alzheimer's drobodinopizil both share. In 2001, galantamine was approved by the FDA for the treatment of mild to moderate Alzheimer's disease. It is sold under the brand name Razidine. A flower that peasants noticed seemed to protect against polio became a modern Alzheimer's medication. This brings us to our final story. I told you at the beginning that the final plant on our list was the only herbal medicine ever to win a Nobel Prize. Here is that story. Artemis inin from sweet wormwood. For thousands of years, traditional Chinese medicine used Artemisia annua, sweet wormwood, to treat fevers. In the 1960s, during the Vietnam War, the Chinese government launched a secret research program to find a new treatment for malaria. A young Chinese scientist named Tu Youyou was assigned to lead the project. She searched through ancient Chinese medical texts looking for clues. She tested 2,000 traditional remedies. Most failed. Then she found a passage in a text written in 340 AD by the Chinese physician Jie Hong. It described soaking sweet wormwood in cold water, not boiling it. That single detail changed everything. Tu Youyou realized that heat must be destroying the active compound. She developed a low-temperature extraction method. She isolated the compound artemisinin. When tested, it killed malaria parasites faster than any drug ever developed. In 2015, Tu Youyou won the Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine. She is the only person ever to win a Nobel Prize for a discovery made from traditional medicine. Artemisinin-based combination therapies are now the first-line treatment for malaria worldwide. The World Health Organization estimates that artemisinin has prevented hundreds of thousands of deaths every single year. In a 1,600-year-old Chinese text, was the answer to a disease that takes children's lives to this day. Tu Youyou did not invent that answer. She simply listened to it. And that completes our journey through 10 modern medicines that started as ancient plants. This is the clearest possible evidence of what this channel has spent 2 years exploring. Ancient healers were not guessing. They were observing, they were experimenting, they were documenting what worked. And the medicines that surround us today, the prescription drugs that save lives in every hospital on Earth, trace their origin to plants that someone, somewhere, sometime first noticed could heal. That is not folklore. That is the foundation of modern pharmacy. If this changed the way you think about where medicine comes from, subscribe to the Green Domain. Because next, We are exploring the ancient herbs that modern research supports for anxiety and stress relief. Drop a comment and tell me which of these stories surprised you the most. Was it the folk healer who taught withering about foxglove, the flower from Madagascar that saved childhood cancer patients, or the ancient Chinese text that won a Nobel Prize? I read every comment. Ancient wisdom, modern proof, real results. I will see you in the next one.